Speaking at Mansion House, Rishi Sunak said, "Our ambition had been to reach a comprehensive set of mutual decisions on financial services equivalence. That has not happened." Sunak confirmed that the UK and EU have failed to reach an equivalence agreement in which both sides would mutually recognize rules governing financial services in their respective areas. The impasse is the latest in a string of spats between London and Brussels since the UK formally left the EU at the beginning of the year. Just Wednesday, the UK and the EU agreed to a 3-month grace period for the export of chilled meats to Northern Ireland, putting a brief end to the so-called sausage war. The Chancellor also used the speech to temper concerns among investors that the EU could block UK firms' access to its markets due to a weaker regulatory system. The EU will never have cause to deny the UK access because of poor regulatory standards, he said. Take firms like clearing houses, which are fundamental to the open free markets that we advocate. The UK already has one of the world's most robust regulatory regimes for central counterparties. Well, the announcement did not come as a shock to London's bankers, who have long known that negotiations have broken down. But Sunak's declaration made official a big blow to an industry that has already been leaking business into the continent. Sunak's comments, which were part of his annual Mansion House speech to London's financial services sector, came towards the end of a week in which JP Morgan made its new Paris offices its main trading hub for Europe. Sunak's speech didn't acknowledge the jobs and businesses that have already moved to Europe. Instead, he spent time praising the sector which pays £76 billion in tax annually, enough to pay for our entire police force and our entire state school system, he said. The UK's financial services industry, which manages assets worth £9.9 trillion, didn't figure in the final trade deal that the UK and the EU struck. Before Brexit, banks based in the UK had passporting rights that allowed them to offer banking services across EU borders and to set up branches in EU countries easily. To compensate for the loss of these rights, the UK has been trying to persuade the EU to grant the financial services sector permanent equivalence. But that was an empty promise from the start. This would give the UK's banks the ability to continue doing business in and with Europe as they'd been doing before Brexit, as long as the UK's financial regulations roughly matched those of the EU. Under this regime of equivalence, the EU could unilaterally withdraw from the agreement, but that was still considered a better situation than leaving banks without equivalence or passporting rights, a situation in which banks would have to apply for licenses in each individual EU country and could only offer a smaller set of services once licensed. At the moment, the EU has granted temporary equivalence to key financial institutions in the UK, which lasts until the middle of 2022. In March, the UK and the EU agreed on a memorandum of understanding that covers voluntary cooperation on financial services regulation, and observers hoped it would evolve into a deal on equivalence. This has not happened, Sunak declared. "We now have the freedom to do things differently and better, and we intend to use it fully." Yeah, better, global, blah, blah, blah. The UK's admission of defeat at failing to secure equivalence may unsettle London's financial sector further. In April, an analysis by New Financial, a London think tank, calculated that at least 440 banks and financial services companies had moved some part of their operation and manage assets from London to European cities. These firms would take around £900 billion in assets with them, said William Wright, New Financial's founder. And the EU is actively trying to move more financial activity from the UK to the continent. In particular, the EU has its eyes on a big prize: London clearing houses' control of the £122 trillion market of euro derivatives clearing. At least 80% of that market is made up by LCH, and given that the company deals in multiple currencies, relocating that market to Brussels Eurex exchange will be complicated. But as of now, LCH can serve EU customers only until June 2022, when the temporary equivalence arrangement runs out. This month, the EU began asking companies to recommend legislative changes that could help shift more activity from LCH to Europe. Andrew Bailey, the Bank of England's governor, accused the EU in February of trying to poach firms from London. Trying to shift derivatives clearing activity, Bailey said, was a serious escalation. Yeah, but he misunderstands the EU there as well. Now the UK is not a member anymore, so it's not a serious escalation, it's a natural development because of Brexit. It's a simple, natural Brexit consequence. And that's what a lot of people still don't want to understand. You can decide to leave the EU, but there are consequences that come with this decision. And you have to live with those consequences, and you can't blame the EU for those consequences. You made the decision to leave. If you leave the club, you can't use all the perks anymore. And I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.